looking into the literature on financial literacy and the obstacles to building wealth, I mean, what I found is that there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of sort of lack of literacy among people, even highly educated people. So there's a suggestion in the literature that like retired medical doctors are most vulnerable to sort of various financial scams and whatever, because they don't know as much as they think they know, right? They don't know that much about finances. Nowhere in their professional journey have they had to pick up, the basic financial literacy. And they're used to knowing stuff. They're used to people deferring to them. They're used to calling the shots and, having people follow their. So they go into like investing the way they went into the professional setting, the clinic or whatever, just doing whatever feels good. And in the clinic, they have training experience, right? There are feedback loops if you make like radical mistakes. But in investing, you might not realize that you're making massive mistakes. Like my dad did fine at the end of the day. He didn't lose everything, whatever. Some people lose everything. And it's not until that point that they realize, whoa, I should have done something different. And what's particularly sort of annoying about this thing is that if you don't know very much about investing, there is like effectively one right answer, right? And it's index funds. What you need to do if you don't know what you're doing, you've got a relatively long time horizon, is index funds. It's as safe as it can get. It gives you the payoff you can expect, and you don't need to think about it. In fact, you're better off not even looking at it.
I think this is the hard thing for intelligent people. So my experience through my YouTube channel and then this podcast is that the more intelligent people are, the harder they find it to grasp that the best thing to do is really simple, because they operate in quite a highly competent, quite technical manner. So they think, well, if I'm a solicitor, a barrister, a PhD economist, investing must be super complicated as well, because it's taken me 7 years to be this good. And I know that the stakes over here are really high in terms of you can earn lots of money. And my view of the world of investing is Goldman Sachs and Wolf of Wall Street. And they, it seems quite like high octane and technical. So when you go, oh no, just buy the off the shelf ready meal version of an investment, and that's the best thing that anyone can do, they kind of think, no, that can't be right.
It feels
it's
wrong.
Counterintuitive.
Right? I'm so bright. I should be able to beat the market. Like, dude, you can't. This raises the problem of overconfidence, which is something else I love to talk about, right? Where the finding is that overwhelmingly people are overconfident. Like we have a radically exaggerated picture of our own abilities and knowledge. And
I was about to ask. I was like, is this just in investing or in all aspects of their life?
Yeah, all aspects.
Oh yeah, that sounds like me.
There are exceptions, like very easy questions, like if I ask you what your name is, right? You're going to know the answer to that. But overwhelmingly, everyone's like overconfident to some degree. And interestingly, like being highly educated is not protective against overconfidence. In fact, being an expert isn't necessarily protective against overconfidence. What happens there is that when you study some domain, investing, for example, like you spend years in school, like you get your MBA, you work, you get experience. Over time, your confidence will build. Or if you're a medical doctor for decades, right, you'll become more and more confident in your abilities. But by and large, like your skill doesn't increase as fast as your confidence does. And so paradoxically, like people who are experts in a domain can be more overconfident than the rest of us who know not to make judgments about their domain of expertise.
So that they might make quick gut decisions that lead to bad outcomes. Like a surgeon might be like, oh, I can just, do that.
Oh, I know. I don't need to take that, I don't need to order that test, right? Because I know what's wrong with this. I saw a patient like this before, and the problem was X, right? And then it turns out that the problem was Y, and the treatment for X is like actively harmful to people with Y, whatever. This sort of thing happens all the time. And it's really hard. So like I study these things, I write about these things, and I fall prey to it like all the time. So at one point I went to the doctor, I had like skin condition in my face. It's like very annoying. And so I saw a dermatologist, and like he was across the room looking out of the window as I was telling him like my medical history. And I said, the other doctors, didn't manage to cure it because they thought it was this thing and whatever. And looking out the window, he was like, well, the other doctors failed because what you have is like this other thing. And I walked out of there and I was like, wow, what a doctor, right? He could diagnose me without even looking at me. And it wasn't like much later that I started thinking about this in terms of overconfidence. I was like, wait, what basis did he have for making that judgment, right? He didn't even look at me, right? I assumed because he was so confident that he
was right.
was competent and that he was right. But that's a fallacy, right? That's a mistake. And it's a mistake that we make all the time. Like in a hiring context, if you're interviewing people for a job, right? Some guy shows up, he's like, yeah, I know how to do that, man. I'm great. I've always succeeded. You can trust me. And then there's somebody else, maybe a woman who says, well, I've never done this before, but I'm a fast learner. I can probably pick it up. You might be tempted to hire the most confident person, right? Thinking that's got to be the most competent person. But that's a mistake because these things don't correlate the way you might want. And if this is the way you go about hiring a team, like your entire team will be overconfident, right? You are inadvertently selecting for overconfidence. And this is hilarious because if you ask managers, like, are you overconfident? By and large, people will say, no, like that thing I just said, no, I'm sure of it, right? I'm not overconfident. But if you ask, are people on your team overconfident? They'll go, oh, yeah, gosh, yeah. I know all these people who are like way too confident. But that's true. And it's the fault of the manager, right? Who's been actively, inadvertently selecting for overconfidence.
This was a clip from our episode with Eric Agner. What? It was.
Okay, look, this was a clip from our episode with Eric Agner. You can watch the full episode right here. He's an economist, he's amazing, he tells you all about how to get rich and fix the world and stuff like that.
Just take it by
That's it, that's the clip. We want to laugh at you because it's funny. Eric Agner.